The debate between Christian and Muslim apologists over Tawheed, Islamic monotheism, and the Christian Trinity often becomes lengthy, sometimes lasting for hours. Yet, this argument is fundamentally flawed and can be refuted in a matter of minutes or with just a few hundred words. It's akin to debating whether there is one moon or three moons. What apologists in both traditions fail to grasp is that both one moon and three moons are finite concepts that exist within the bounds of the physical universe. The same logic applies to the question of whether God is one or three. Both positions describe finite entities that exist in space and time, subject to the laws of the physical world. When we count something as one or three, we are dealing with finite entities that exist within the universe as defined by science. Therefore, such concepts cannot represent God, as they pertain to creation. Anything physical is part of creation. This distinction is of paramount importance. The ongoing debate over whether God is one or three gods stems from a profound misunderstanding of God's very essence. The question itself presupposes that God must be a finite entity, something that can be measured and counted. But this is not God's nature. God transcends these categories, and any discussion that seeks to quantify, measure, or categorize God in finite terms is inherently flawed. Therefore, if God were to physically manifest in a form that could be seen, touched, or measured, such as in the event described in both Christian and Islamic eschatology, where God would gather, judge, reward, and punish humanity during the last days, it would fundamentally contradict the nature of God. Such an entity could not be called God in the ultimate sense. The Old Testament does not speak of God in the way many assume. It refers to Elohim and Yahweh, who are actually figures like judges, rulers, or angels. One might argue that Elohim/Yahweh had a son named Jesus, sent to Israel, but it would be incorrect to say that God had a son. That would be akin to claiming the force of gravity has a son. Instead, we can explore the concept of men embodying divinity, a concept that indeed exists. Jesus was a physical being and, therefore, cannot be God. Similarly, Allah is described as a physical being who will enter earth and can be seen physically according to the Hadith, which also means he cannot be God. In both cases, we are not dealing with God, as this is not an attribute of God. If you argue that Jesus' spirit is God and not his physical form, you are entering a discussion where a physical form is said to possess a spirit, not only in Jesus, but in everything. The real issue is whether a human being can embody divinity to some extent, claim to be God, perform miracles, and receive revelation. The answer is yes. For God to be God, God must first and foremost be omnipresent and formless, existing everywhere, so that nothing can exist outside of God. Let me illustrate with an analogy. Imagine your physical body fitting perfectly into a container, with no space left, not even for an atom. In this case, there could be no other person, as you would occupy every part of the container. In the same way, God is like an infinite expanse of space, stretching endlessly with no room for another entity. It is only in this sense that we can think of God as one. Everything physical, whether it be Jesus, Krishna, or the physical universe, exists within God. Therefore, the concept of God in both Islam and Christianity is fundamentally flawed. The Qurayshi religion, predominant in pre-Islamic Arabia, revered a pantheon of 360 idols. Among them, one deity, Allah, was singled out by the Prophet of Islam and elevated as the sole true God, while the other 359 idols were rejected. This dramatic shift is vividly captured in the Quran, chapter 38-5, where the Qurayshi people express their astonishment. Has he reduced all the gods to one God? Indeed, this is something totally astonishing. This verse underscores the idea that Allah was initially a finite entity, both regarded as a finite being and believed to have had three daughters. This is addressed in the Quran in chapter 37-149. Ask them, O Prophet, if your Lord has daughters while the pagans prefer to have sons. The names of these daughters, Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, are explicitly mentioned in chapter 53:19-22. Have you pagans considered Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, the third, the other? Do you then prefer sons for yourselves and daughters for him? This is truly an unfair division. This critique by the Qurayshi people highlights the origins of Allah as one of their deities in pre-Islamic Arabia. The attribution of three daughters to this deity suggests characteristics more akin to a human or demigod, Godman. The Prophet of Islam later redefined Allah as the singular God, substituting this name for the gods of the Bible, Elohim, Yahweh, and Jesus. However, in the Old Testament, the term Elohim is used to refer to multiple entities, with Yahweh being one among them. When examined through the root meanings, these terms often refer to judges, rulers, governors, or angels, rather than to God.
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So, what'll that make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide, how to lie. Me, I don't have that problem. Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Come on. Make way for the bad guy. There's a bad guy coming through. Better get out of his way.
This was never about money for us. It was about us against the system. That system that kills the human spirit. We stand for something. To those dead souls inching along the freeways in their metal coffins, we show them that the human spirit is still alive.